Why are we here? What are we doing? And why is crawling through vents the only way to get around in this rental facility? Welcome back, my fellow gamers. It's me, Amanda. Today I'm going to be attempting to answer the question, what is the story of FNAF Sister Location? By acknowledging all the evidence that we think we have and all the evidence that we are definitely very much missing. But mainly we'll be taking a closer look and picking apart many of the mysteries this game left us with, either by introducing them itself or by simply teasing at unresolved mysteries once more without, actually resolving them at all. What is the biggest question you have after playing FNAF 5 Sister Location? Let us know in the comments. When it comes to Sister Location, one of the greatest mysteries still seemingly left unsolved is why we are here. Why are we, as the player, playing, we assume as Michael Afton, codenamed here Eggs Benedict, at the Sister Location? At Circus Baby's entertainment and rental. I know what you're thinking, but Amanda, we kinda already know. We're here to free Elizabeth's soul at William's behest. But while that is the theory, it is still technically just that. A theory. While there is some evidence to back up that theory, it still remains to be largely unconfirmed. I think the struggle to accept this theory and the evidence supporting it as, actual fact for me is because, well, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, as soon as you think about it, you're like, wait, but what? Like, there are a lot of questions I need answered first before I can just accept that somehow Michael was sent there by William. First of all, if Michael was sent there by William for this sole purpose, pun completely intended here, then why didn't William seem to tell Michael about Circus Baby being the supposed housing unit for Elizabeth's soul? Why does that seem to be information Michael also learns during the game? Even if we were to think, well, hey, maybe Michael did know, and the exposition was actually more for us, the player, who didn't know the full story. Why wouldn't Baby recognize Michael as her brother? Why does that never happen? Is he wearing a disguise? And if Michael did know, why didn't he do something sooner? Why is it never brought up? Why did he just blatantly trust Baby? Was it because he knew that this was his sister and his sister was, maybe a part of her was still somewhere in there, and so he felt, oh, she's pretty trustworthy because, a part of Elizabeth might be guiding her, I don't know. What was Michael's plan anyways if his intention the whole time was to free Elizabeth's soul? Because to be honest, it doesn't seem, doing his job, that he really had much of a plan here at all. Second of all, if Michael was approached by William to, go to Circus Baby's entertainment and rental, how did William even reach out to him? Why did Michael just do what he said? How did that conversation even go, if that was a conversation? My son. Oh, hi Dad. Wait, Dad, shouldn't you be like dead or something? And also, didn't you murder a bunch of people? Yes. Right, okay, Dad, but I have a lot more. Can't stay, must go, ta-ta! What even would that conversation be? It's breaking my brain to think about it. Did William just send Michael like some mysterious letter and Michael like opened it up and he was like, okay, I guess I'm going to this place now. Who's this letter from? Is it from my dad? Is he a murderer? Why would Michael even trust that? I have more questions than answers when it comes to just the premise of this game. Yet somehow, despite all of that, it still has maybe one of the best stories of all the games that we have. Even though when we start to obviously pick apart what's going on, there's so much left unexplained that really just it does not make too much sense. And friends, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to click that like if you want to hear more conversations where I pretend to be Michael and William and tell you what those conversations are like, or maybe, I don't know, William and Elizabeth. I feel like those ones would be pretty weird too. Case and point, the whole opening of this game, which I love, but also, I mean, what is happening here? It seems like Afton is being interrogated by the police about his animatronics. Chiefly, the one they seem to be discussing here is Circus Baby. The police basically tell Afton there's some features of the animatronic that they don't fully understand. Now William responds by seemingly listing off all of her various impressive family-friendly features in a British accent too, which creates some more smaller, admittedly, mysteries in regards to the Afton's family origins, but we don't have time for that right now. The police, however, respond by saying these were not the features they wanted to talk about, which did they want to talk about though? They don't say that. You could consider it might be like, I don't know, her ability to kill people, because that's a thing that we know from this game. But then that would technically be the ice cream dispenser, I think, wouldn't it? I think. Which Afton actually did point out, so I mean, in his defense, he kind of covered it. Unless they didn't realize that Elizabeth had been scooped by like an ice cream scoop, which is I think what's kind of happening to her. Also, if this is after that incident and Elizabeth is, as we've assumed, Afton's daughter, why does he sound so calm during this entire interview? Like, if this isn't the feature they're talking about, then also why aren't they talking about this? Because that's the feature. Like, someone was likely just scooped. I mean, I feel like you could, I guess you wouldn't see that because Elizabeth kind of gets like pulled inside, but I don't know. The other feature, it could be the emergency stop, I suppose, which we know from the schematics, from the blueprints. But while that is an interesting feature, it seems more like a safety feature than anything. Also, why didn't we activate the emergency stop? Like, why was that never done? So I don't see why it would be concerning to anyone investigating animatronic attacks, because that's actually like, I feel like a pretty good feature. Now, it wasn't used, unless it was and it just didn't work, I don't know. Once we get into the game, there are even more mysteries for us to puzzle out. It seems like Circus Baby's entertainment and rental has fallen into a state of disrepair, which makes us wonder when the game exactly takes place. I mean, obviously things are still running here, hand unit is still online, lights and buttons are still working, still flashing, but also a super interesting but small detail that I've always found fascinating is that the vent that we first used to crawl into the main workspace has actually a bunch of tape over it that reads danger. I actually wonder if the facility may be below where the actual Circus Baby Pizza World was, and that after the incident that took place in the restaurant, which obviously resulted in Elizabeth's death, it was perhaps also shut down. So, you know, we're venturing into this sister location following it perhaps being closed, which is what the danger tape is maybe meant to symbolize, that it's, you know, closed down now. However, it is interesting that the tape reads danger and not, you know, crime scene, which you would think. Other evidence that seems to suggest, without it being explicitly stated, that we are actually working at Circus Baby's entertainment and rental following its closure is that, you know, we never actually see a paycheck, which wouldn't be super suspicious, except that in the first game we're like all about those paychecks, baby, and they're weirdly low dollar amounts. Though granted, those weirdly low amounts were helpful because they actually allowed us to get a sense for when the game was actually set. With Sister Location, we do not get that. And it also calls into question whether or not we're actually working a paid shift for, you know, a company that exists, or mostly just coming around each night to, you know, just like investigate this place after, you know, it's already been shut down and abandoned because we're just looking for Elizabeth's soul. I know what some of you might be thinking in regards to it being abandoned, but what about the other workers who are mentioned and who we see the bodies of? Well, you know, those could actually be fake bodies which are strung up to scare us by the animatronics, or they could very well be bodies of employees that were just left there to rot, because I would believe it. I'm not saying we came to this place years after it was shut down. I'm not saying, because, you know, I don't think these look like skeletons. I mean, this could be a few months after. Where Sister Location honestly is meant to fit on this timeline has always seemed extremely mysterious and elusive to me. I'm like, when, what is this timeline anyways? It's less of a line and more of like a bundle of yarn at this point that's all knotted up. Another thing that I've never quite understood from a functionality and accessibility standpoint is why we crawl around in the vents. Why is there not just like a back room or something that we can just, you know, use, that we could go to access these areas? I mean, from a business standpoint, it makes your job a lot more accessible if you have that, because, you know, not everyone is the right size to crawl through vents, and some people have mobility disabilities that don't allow them to crawl at all. Granted, I know why we crawl around the vents from a video game standpoint, because, you know, it's a heck of a lot more creepy than just like walking through a back room. And it's also, you know, more work to create an entire room versus a vent, I imagine, as a game designer. But still, there isn't much that helps us to make sense of this from like a narrative standpoint. From a business standpoint, it makes no sense. There are many other things that call into question what is really going on in this game and what everything means, what it really means. Did William intentionally put Elizabeth in harm's way, or was that an accident? Now, if it was an accident, why did he ever even bring her anywhere near Circus Baby at all if he knew the animatronic wasn't safe? If the police had him, Why did they let him go? What is the immortal and the restless really meant to represent? How do we get scooped and still live at the end of this game? What does that mean? Is this even Michael in the game? I think it is, but it could be. Is it an animatronic version of Michael? Who is Mrs. Afton? Is there a Mrs. Afton? Is Ballora Mrs. Afton? Why do we all love Ballora? Because she's a ballerina? Why are we all attracted to ballerina animatronic? What does Ballora's sad song mean? And of course, we still don't know why William Afton murders people. Why? Even after this game. The 5th game in the franchise. Whew. Really, what's confusing the most though is why we are here and what the heck we're doing, and if it's even what we have all been theorizing, because after all, it's just that. A theory. A FNAF theory. I answered none of the questions, but I did a good job, I think, of highlighting them and how they relate to the story, so you're welcome. That's all the time we have for this video. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into one of my favorite FNAF games, honestly, despite it being no less confusing than any of the other ones. Sister location. I will see you next time, but until then, keep on gaming on. Pew pew!